All right, I think the gang's all here. I imagine we just,
Hi, welcome back, everyone.
Thank you.
To gather up our information, we'll ask that if you are able to do so and you have notes, please put them into our chat window so we can all see them. And we'll also just go around, and we have 5 groups. So let's take a couple, maybe let's start with feedback from the first question about the wish list. And let's just go around and hear 1 minute per group, just share some highlights.
just start with group number 1, and who took notes in the first round for group number 1?
See, something has happened to the notes document. Like, where did the second question go? It appears like we lost.
Uh-oh.
The second question is towards the bottom, Leslie. Since we switched to groups, I moved the second question down and then listed the new groups underneath the second question. So we might have to clean it up later. It looks like it is inconsistent formatting, but maybe folks can just do their best to find their notes and or just share what you remember, because we only have a minute per group anyways.
I couldn't figure that out, Marissa, and also I can't paste my notes into chat.
Yeah.
Let's not worry about the chat then. Let's just talk. Here we are. We have a little time. Let's just talk together and share what we have, and then we can clean up the Google Doc later.
Good idea.
Okay.
Let's talk. Let's popcorn. Jump in and share share some highlights.
Shelley, do you want to cover our group 3 notes?
Sure, I'll be happy to. And if you guys jump in, if I miss something you think I should say.
It might be easiest if we start with group 1 for question 1 and then go to group 2 for question 1, group 3 for question 1. So group 1 for question 1, that's Jane, Conrad, and Leslie.
I guess since I took the notes on that one, I'll say it. We would like someone at the national level with expertise in mediation who could step in to help groups that are experiencing dysfunction and could use an outside assistance. Resources that help people with the transition of leadership, actually like talking about a change before it happens. So I had shared that I chatted with several groups where the leaders just left and they hadn't thought about the transition. And we also talked about the kind of challenge of Transition US, teaching leadership when groups are supposed to be autonomous, and how much do we need people to be in line when groups are actually so different across the US. And that's it.
Right, and I was.
Let's hear from group 2. Yep.
Yeah, I was the note taker for group 2, and I'll quickly share what we put down. So for our wish list, we had community organizing resources, specifically training, support, focus on relationship building, and processes and like review systems for feedback. Also trauma-informed and inclusive communication, conflict support is something that came up as well for us. And then, yeah, how to make sure that groups are not operating from a place of scarcity, which could serve to escalate tensions. So how do we make sure folks are getting the resources that we need financially? Let's see. And then we also talked about knowing when the container cannot handle a certain challenge or conflict, like how to discern when that happens. When do we need outside support? So again, these themes of trauma and conflict seemed very much to come up for us. And if folks wanted to quickly add anything I missed, please do. I think we're done.
That's great, Jess. Thank you. And group 3 is John Duvall, Alyssa Miles, and Shelley. One of you two.
Yeah, we brought up how to find and allocate financial resources. We would like an article on how to cultivate leadership skills for new people and offer mentoring. Shelley talked about her citizens climate lobby training, which was pretty much on the ground, was really helpful. How to form local TIs and lead people to establish their own TIs and maintain a communication with Transition US. Training and dialogues for personality conflicts, more online structural organization, perhaps a reskilling course, someplace where you could go to Transition US online and look for what TIs are already doing, like a database to go to, maybe something about local banking models that are working. Alyssa liked that idea. It'd be nice to have a national level mentorship exchange, perhaps on time banking, some strong material on diversity, equity, and inclusion when it comes to leadership, conscious outreach to different segments of community that may not be thinking in transition terms. That's it. Anybody else want to add?
You got it.
Well, I took notes for group 4 for Sylvia Holmes, Shari Stuber, and Monty Smith about the wish list. And Shari thought it'd be nice to be able to teach people how to facilitate a meeting. People don't know how to do that. It would be nice to learn about how to organize things, like how to plan for an event. It'd be really important to be able to deal with other personalities, and she brought up the Myers-Briggs study, and that when they shared results from that, it was illuminating. And I talked about the non-hierarchical structure of Transition Pasadena and how well it's working. And then Monty said that personality typing is helpful. And he also mentioned that mindfulness disciplines, especially the ones that are based in the body, help a lot. So Shari was wondering if maybe they are turning into, maybe there is some hierarchy that has just snuck in. I thought that was really interesting, that you're just not aware of it or whatever. And because it's the way most of the culture is working, so that makes sense that it would just automatically happen that way. And then I realized, oh, we're comfortable with chaos, Transition Pasadena, and that might be one of the keys. And Monty also said, oh yeah, when there's chaos, see if you can sit with it in a mindful way. So that was really interesting. I'm done. Anybody else, Shari or Monty?
I would just like to say I appreciated that. I love that question of the hierarchy sneaking in and being comfortable with chaos.
Group 5 is Lynn and John, Alan and Laura.
I took a couple of notes. We didn't even establish, we mostly spent time getting to know each other since we didn't know each other. Some of the things that came up though, it was obvious that Lynn and John and Alan all have been parts of or near peripheral to some initiatives that started off big with a bang and then very quickly dissipated. So Lynn mentioned, we were talking about how to get people to show up to really build a cohesive core that would hang together enough to, you know, get through some of the other stuff and make stuff happen. And she was questioning, you know, how to determine, you know, if there are any helpful tools, how to determine what is the buy-in or the motivation of the people showing up, like what would be a good maybe assessment tool or exercise to help us understand why the people who come together in the first place are there, so that we can better manage how to, you know, make something happen with that. And Alan gave us basically the list in the last minute of our breakout group. He wanted to know a clearer communication from Transition US of the mission of Transition US, because his perception is that it's changed somewhat over the last 10 years with regards to transition initiatives. So clearer, stronger messaging on that, I guess. A guide would be useful on how to revitalize or restart a chapter or a failed or stalled transition initiative. And that's pretty much something all three of us had in common. That's kind of the big ask, I guess. And then Alan specifically mentioned resources about how to lead without being a leader, because he said his particular community is very social, you know, kind of anti-hierarchical, you know, how to message leadership in a group of people that is, you know, herding cats, I guess, that's not sort of comfortable with that terminology. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. Feel free to jump in and clarify, Alan, Lynn, or John. That's what I got out of it. Peace back.
That's good, thanks.
I'm looking at the time. Thanks for all those pearls. And since we have just a little over 10 minutes, I wonder if we might just use William and Don and Marissa. What do you think? Should we just use the chat and ask people to type in their pearls of wisdom, and or also any books, articles, materials that you've found helpful about power and leadership? Anything you want us to all know about? What do you think about doing that?
Yeah, I
Just
think
take
that's
5
a fine
minutes
idea.
and do that.
I think that's a fine idea. I was looking at the time too, and thinking we were getting a little threadbare.
Yeah.
Let's. So if you have something that is that feels really potent, pop it into the chat. And was anybody not able to get their responses to the second question into the notes?
Yeah,
and I agree, Marissa. It would be nice to hear from Group 6 on the first question. So actually, let's do that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let's do that real quick.
I didn't know there was one more group. Yes, please. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, so I'm Suzanne, and I was with RAINS, and I've been involved with nonviolent communication, Marshall Rosenberg's thing, that actually originally came, by the way, from Carl Rogers. A lot of people don't know that, and he was an incredible man as well. So I immediately brought that up as a specific tool that we can use, because it addresses so much of what we're talking about. A lot of people think it's just kind of a conflict resolution tool, but it's really about undoing hierarchical ways of being and organizations. So it addresses leaderfulness. It addresses the idea of instead of coming in with this idea that we have to have a strategy, coming in with the idea that the priority is relationships, and at all times that the priority is relationships. And if we do that, the strategies will emerge, and they will change over time to meet the relationships that are there. And what's so good about this is that if people feel like they're being heard, then they are more likely to stay. They're more likely to, buy into what's going on. If we know for sure that's what's happening, that everybody is buying in as the strategies change, they're a lot more likely to stay in the group. And Rain's had some experience with WC too, so that's kind of where we ended up sort of hashing that out back and forth. And that's it.
Thank you, group 6.
Some nice stuff showing up in the chat as well. I would encourage you to save the chat if you want to hold on to those notes. Down in the chat, so the place where you type things into to chat with somebody, you'll see a little ellipsis, 3 dots in the upper right hand corner of that. If you hover over it, it says more, and if you click on it, you'll get save chat. And what I don't know is whether it saves the chat right now, or if it saves the chat, at the end, because
it'll save the chat from the time you got on individually until whenever you save the chat.
Okay, and it will not save it after that point? Okay, so then you want to remember to save it, whatever, 3 seconds before we all sign off.
Where does it save it to?
It saves it onto your computer. It'll be a little file, and I've opened the file before. The files in there, they can be kind of a mess, so you kind of need to sort out what the chat is. They may have improved that since I was using it regularly, but I generally save the chat. I just haven't always been going back and looking at them.
What link are we looking for?
So to save the chat, you're going to the window where you type things in on the chat window. And then in the upper right-hand corner of that,
yes.
There's an ellipsis. Yeah, got it. Great.
Yeah.
There you go.
Can I add something? Because I see consensus in here in our group almost ended in its first year. And if we had required consensus, we would definitely have ended almost immediately. It took us, we had incredible difficulties, and the only thing that saved us was that we did not agree to consensus at the beginning. We had a person whose job was a founder, whose job was really to say no to absolutely everything that everyone did. And it was very new to group, so it was very even. There was no established power or authority, but we used democratic voting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Leslie, there are a whole lot of different forms of consensus. It doesn't mean 100% agreement on everything. And so, you might look up a book about consensus and read some of the variety.
Well, she was a Quaker, and there were 4 Quakers in the group. So we had a lot of experience with consensus, and she was unwilling to step back on anything because she really saw her role as controlling through.
So we're right about 5 minutes before the end. We had wanted to do a closing round, but I'm realizing that 20 of us fitting into 5 minutes plus the other couple of things we wanted to do is unlikely. And I want to leave time for Dawn to wrap us up and talk about next steps. So before we do that, I realize that one or both of these questions may well have sparked a lot of thoughts. Our minds may be running around all over, experiences we've had, things that we said, things that we wish we had said. And I just want us to kind of ground ourselves again. So find yourself a comfortable position again. Whatever that looks like for you. My old housemate, one of my old housemates called this a pause for the cause, if you preferred that terminology, but just eyes open or closed, your preference. We'll just hang out in silence for a few seconds. Would you like to wrap us up with next steps? And looks like if you know what our upcoming strategy sessions are as well, off the top of your, I'm sure you do. I'm just saying that. Take it away.
Well, I know we are planning one on the inner transition for next month, going with this theme of solstice time and going within, and New Year's and resolutions and things. And we're going to do 3 or 4 more of these national network strategy conversations in the first half of next year. We'll also continue, our hope is to continue doing these calls on a monthly basis going forward on different topics related to transition. So I think this is something we'll just keep rolling. And, like Jess said in the chat, we can find these topics that we want to do deeper dives on and host sessions specifically on them. So lots of opportunity for that. Yeah, Sylvia, I see your question in the chat about who is allowed to attend future meetings. Right now, we've been inviting people who are actively involved with official transition initiatives, regional hubs, national working groups, collaborative design council, our staff and board of directors. But anybody, if they want to join in these calls, can request an invitation, even if they're not involved with one of those groups. But we do want to keep it, at least for now, kind of focused on people who have been involved, who have done this work and have insights coming out of the work. Just one other thing I want to mention in terms of next steps is that, we've had an effective collaboration training here in the US for about 7 years. It's only been offered a handful of times, but we are getting together a group in the early part of next year to go over that curriculum and to add, update from various perspectives, from perspectives from our social justice community practice, from our inner resilience network, from people who are pro-social and sociocracy practitioners and others, and hope to make it available as a self-guided course that anyone can take at any time from anywhere, and will be free to members of all official transition groups here in the US at the very least. And others can take for a small fee. And we're also looking to produce a companion handbook to the course that will serve as an easy reference. And kind of going back to something I think Leslie said at the beginning, we're not looking to prescribe how groups deal with their power and leadership and culture, but to rather give people, you know, a whole assortment of tools and strategies and perspectives that have been valuable for people doing this work, and then to let local groups choose how they, you know, how to best manifest that. But it definitely is a principle of the entire transition movement that we work in collaborative ways together, that we believe in collaboration, the power of collaboration. And so, you know, that's kind of a non-negotiable in transition. Specifically, how you choose to do it for your local group is, you know, the decision of that local group to make. So that's kind of where we're coming from on it, and a few things to look forward on this topic of power, leadership, and healthy movement culture. I don't know if Marissa, you wanted to add anything to that before we wrap.
No, I think you covered it. Thanks so much, everybody. I'm looking forward to seeing some of you next year as we continue these national network strategy conversations. And thanks to our facilitators, Alyssa and William. Have a great rest of the year, everyone.
Yeah. See you next year.
Happy New Year.
Good Yule.
Night, everybody.
Happy holidays.
Thanks.
Happy holidays.
Happy many
Yeah.
things.
Remember to save the chat.
Yeah,
Bye,
we'll
y'all.
save the chat.
Bye.
Bye.